Well, thanks for being here, Matt. For those of you that don't know Matt, Matt is the graphic designer here at Mosaic. Makes us look way better than what we really are in life. Talented graphic designer, and overall just a great person. So thanks for being here, Matt, and sharing your story.
Check us out, zooming away. You're all the way in Dubai, in the big city of dreams, and I'm here in the little island of Malta, chilling in the Mediterranean. It's pretty cool that we could do this. So yeah, I'm happy I could come here and just spend some time to share my story a little bit.
Yeah. So I've known, I guess, Matt for about a year and a half or so, and you had some difficult times in the past, and so can you share a little bit about what has been going on in your life over the past few years?
Well, let me tell you, 2020 has been a crazy year, and I'm sure that's an understatement for many people. It's crazy, you know. It's been unbelievable, and for me, it started before the whole COVID thing happened. So you know, a lot went down in a very short time for me, and you know, so it all started, you know, end of 2019. You know, I was working for a church in Dubai, and I had been there for a few years, and I kind of felt that it was my time to exit. And there was a lot of things that started happening through prayer, and just I feel like God was speaking to me, and little things that happened to confirm that that was the right decision. You know, I knew it was my timing. I just wasn't sure when, and I knew that I wasn't just going to leave. I knew it had to be something that God really, you know, did and showed me clearly. And I remembered I went to church one day. I was serving on, you know, as a creative director, and it was so funny. The whole day, people kept opening physical doors for me. Like everywhere I went, someone would open a door, and I didn't open any doors. I just kept walking through these doors, and it was, and it stuck in my head, you know. And it was something that doesn't happen, and it was something that kind of stuck with me. So I went home, I remember, and I was praying, and I just felt like I should pray about it. So I'm praying, like, Lord, is there anything in this? Like, it's been a weird day. All these doors are opening for me. And I kind of felt, you know, a subtle voice say, and I wrote this in my journal, take the next door that opens for you. And I just wrote it down like, hey, whatever, you know, I'm just going to write it down, you know, whatever it is. So funny thing, and I hadn't had any job offers or anything like that happening. You know, I was working, I was happy, everything was great. And you know, I wasn't, you know, asking around, sending my resume. But funnily enough, a few weeks later, a friend of mine who owns a restaurant in Dubai, I went there to say hello, and the conversation came up about me working there, and it had come up in the past a long time ago that maybe one day I'll work here, and it just came up again when I was there, and the owner actually offered me a job to work there in the hospitality industry, which I love, and to go and manage this restaurant. I knew the head chef; he's a good friend of mine. I love the restaurant, you know, and it was like, wow, this is amazing, you know. So it's exactly what I wanted to do. And I really felt like it was my time to leave, and this was the opportunity. And it came shortly after that time of prayer. There were other things. So I left my job at the church as creative director, and I went and started working at this restaurant. And I won't name the restaurant. It's One Life, just in case. But, you know, anyway, you know, it's all good. But I was working there, and it was amazing. You know, I was working this new job, hospitality, good pay, everything is going amazing, and I'm like, this is all God. My life is only going to get better. You know, I felt like I was living in the dream, and things really worked out. And so 2 months goes by, and the owner pulls me aside and says, "I need to speak to you." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. You know, did I do something wrong? You know, did I offend somebody?" With you? All the thoughts are going through the head. And he looked really serious. So he pulled me aside, and he just said, "Look, I have some news for you, and it's really bad news." I'm like, "Okay, just tell me." And he's like, "I'm going to have to fire you."
Oh, no.
Yes. That's the worst news I had ever heard in my life. You know, I never lost my job. I mean, I left a good job, a career, you know, to come to this, and 2 months into it, I'm getting fired. It was a huge shock to me. It was the feelings were like, you know, you hear about stories of people getting fired, but I never expected it. So basically they were running through their accounts, and the accountant had approached the owner saying, "Look, you're losing tons of money." He didn't know this, and he had to like downsize big time. So obviously being on a higher salary pay, I was one of the top people that I had to leave, and he had no choice.
Mm.
So
that must have been because you're like, God, I felt like you told me to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then 2 months later,
So there
yeah.
was a lot of questions. That day driving home, God spoke to me about being in the fog, and He told me that I was going to go through a season of being in the fog. And the thing about fog is, in Dubai, it's beautiful. You get the fog and the city sticking out of the top of the fog. But when you're in the fog, there's only you're moving slowly. You're driving slowly. At least most people are. Some people are driving 120 miles an hour. I don't get it. I drive very slow, and you're moving step by step. And it was kind of God telling me, look, you're going to be walking little by little, step by step. You're not going to be able to see very far ahead, but just trust me. And the thing about fog is, if you get a drone and you're in the fog and you kind of fly that drone out of the fog, it's beautiful and sunny outside, and it just takes a second and all that fog is gone. But outside of the fog, it's beautiful. Everything's happening as per normal. So I kind of felt that was a season I was going into. And right away, so I didn't even go. So the owner gave me like 3 months to find a job. And within a month, I had someone come and approach me telling me that they would hire me as a graphic designer for their business. It was a quarter of the salary that I was used to. So that in itself was a really hard thing. And it was a big thing, but it was still an opportunity. And I felt like God provided through that right away. So I got into this job, and shortly after that, near the end of 2019, my mother had cancer, and so she was really ill. So I decided to go back and be with her, and basically I sat with her in the hospital for a month as she died with cancer. And so that was just another massive shock to my system, like losing your job, going off a quarter of your salary, and then sitting with your mother in the hospital, watching her pass away was just horrific. And I was on my own. I had my dad's support, but other than that, I was just there. And it was about a month of me just being with her. And again, all this was going on, and obviously it was tough, but I want to say that I did feel a certain strength and peace somehow. I can't explain it. There was peace and there was strength, and I was able to cope. I wasn't breaking down. There was fear and obviously sickening feelings to watch your parent pass away, and there was mourning, but I still somehow felt strong through it. You know what I mean? And so that passed, and it was terrible, the whole experience. But I came back to Dubai after a month. My boss at the time, I was kind of working freelance. He allowed me to go, and said, take your time over there. And I came back and got back to work. And it was in January. So this is now January, a couple months later, is when I was hit hard with, at the time I didn't know what it was, but it came out to be panic attacks and, severe anxiety. So I found myself, in that month of Jan, Feb, going in and out of the hospital, having these panic attacks, not knowing what to do with myself, and kind of just trying to figure out what is going on, like right now. This extreme sense of fear, shaking, all the things that come with anxiety. And I realized, I had been hit hard, and things were about to change for me, and this is another big slap in the face. After all the things that had happened, I have to now go through this. One thing I will say, and it's just coming to my mind, my dad has always been, very close to me and been a huge support. And around the time when I was quitting working at the church, he didn't tell me this at the time, but he had a dream that I would come to a fork in the road, and there was an arrow pointing to the left, that I should go left. And in the dream, he knew that going to the right was actually continuing on with the church. And that road to the right was really smooth and easy. But the sign was saying, go to the left. And on the left, the road was extremely rough and rocky and dangerous and steep downhill. But at the end of this rough, rocky road, there was an open plain of just green pastures, which to my dad meant a place of rest and just peace, so that was something that he told me later on, and it made so much sense after everything I was going through. So that was another thing that I can just remember, that God was really just using different people in my life, and speaking to me, speaking through pastors like yourself and my dad, just to really keep me strong during those times, So I'm just really thankful for those things. But yeah, so I started getting anxiety and living with anxiety.
Well, I remember the first time that you told me about it. It was interesting to me because I've always known you as more of a creative, confident person. And when you told me about it for the very first time, you seemed so cool and relaxed about it. It's like, hey man, I had to go to the hospital yesterday and had an anxiety attack. And yeah, so I'm getting better. I'm trying to get through it. And I was like, you were so calm and collective whenever you told me about it. But I just remember thinking to myself, wow, he seems so like real and honest and vulnerable about what you were going through. And I really respected you for that. And I think that that vulnerability made us closer and made our friendship seem more real. Uh,
Yeah.
but tell us, like, is that something that you normally do? Do you normally go around and telling people your issues, or like, how has it helped you to tell other people? Maybe.
Look, I've had a lot of things to deal with my whole life. So I think, I think from a young age, as a Christian, I was saved when I was 17, and I have so many stories that that I would love to share of God's faithfulness in my life through all this pain and struggle. But I think I learned early on in my Christian walk, um, just to surround myself with people that believed in me and that I could trust, and to be open with those people. And I think early on, whether it was dealing with pornography or just different things, I feel like God brought most healing in those moments, where I would just take the walls down, the pride and the sense of I can do this on my own, and just say, look, I need help, and that's tough. And it was tough for me, just to be completely honest about where you're at. And I get emotional thinking about it. But yeah, it's brought a lot of healing in my life. So people like yourself or my dad or close friends, mentors, people that have taken me under their wing, just to be honest, I don't have it together. Being in leadership positions and in a place where you have to look like you've got it all together. Look, I don't have it all together. None of us do. We all need help. And, I think that just that vulnerability and openness and honesty with my wife, and not trying to look like I'm the big strong man that's got it all together, it has brought healing, and God's used those moments to bring healing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something for maybe that's for someone that might be watching this right now, that to hear that it's okay not to be okay, especially right now during
Yeah.
times of COVID. COVID has changed everything. It's been so
Yeah.
hard for so many of us, and people are going through job losses or pay cuts still to this day, and are still trying to recover their self-esteem and their financial position. Yeah, it's people are going through a lot, and people need to hear that it's okay to not be okay. I feel like.
Yeah. I think I just refuse to feel sorry for myself. Like, okay, so I have some anxiety issues or I have some issues. I'm not going to just wallop in self-pity, I'm just going to be honest and open about it. We're all struggling, and I refuse to just beat myself up and feel sorry for myself. And I think that's a dangerous trap when you think, you know, I'm, I'm alone in this. I'm going through this alone. I'm the only one who has these issues. I'm the only one struggling. And you start thinking, I don't deserve this. God doesn't love me. And all these lies start flooding your mind, but it's not true. And I think it's really then about a matter of perspective. Where are you going to choose to focus? Are you going to choose on what you don't have, what you are going through? Or are you going to choose to say, hey, God is doing so many other great things in my life. I have so many other great things, and focus on that,
Yeah. So
So,
tell me about what was your relationship with God during that time? Because I would imagine you would think like things like, God, I want to trust you, and I have this anxiety, and maybe you felt like you might be failing God because you're not trusting Him enough. What were some of the things that was going through your mind, your relationship with God during that time? What gave you
look,
encouragement?
well, I'll tell you this: God has a way of using our pain to bring us closer to Him. And, you know, um, somehow through all of this, and I'm still not there. I still have, anxiety. As I've come a long way, and God's brought a lot of healing, and definitely I'm much better than I was. But somehow God has brought me closer to Him. Now, look, that doesn't mean that I didn't have times where I was like questioning God and angry at God, like what is going on, like, But I just just thinking today before this, we made this video. I was thinking of David's Psalms, and a lot of his Psalms and his laments, and you can see deep anguish in his soul towards God. but one thing that stands out in all the Psalms is that his pain always ended in praise. And I made sure that, as much as I was being honest to God and telling him where I was at, but I would always end with, God, you are so good, and I've seen your faithfulness in my life. And I just remind myself who God is. And I knew that he would come through in whatever way he has to, but it was just reminding myself and not focusing just on the pain, because it was real and I was dead scared. For me, my life was over. It felt like my life was over. But I made sure that, God is so beautiful, and I have countless stories of his faithfulness in my life. And I just focus back on that. What have you done in my life? What are you doing? What do I have that I can just focus to get the anxious thoughts off of my head? So I would just, and it brought a deeper sense of worship in me. It brought a deeper sense of just the awe of God in the pain and just relying on him every day. So yeah, there was a huge part of me being open to God and angry and frustrated. Now you have to get that out of your system. But I think, yeah, it's done a lot of deep work in me, and I find myself, falling in love with him more and more every day through the pain. And really, there's nowhere else to turn. There's nowhere else to go. For me, I have a strong conviction that whatever you experience in life, there's nowhere else to go. Jesus might not answer all your prayers. He might not do everything that you want him to do. In fact, the Bible is full of him offending many people. Were offended by him, by his words, by what he said. But the true disciples would always say, there was a verse in Matthew and it talks about it. They would say, where else is there to go? You have the words of life. There's just nowhere else to go. So I'm aware of that. So, yeah, that was just kind of my experiences with God through that time,
Yeah. It's so true that God does bring us closer, or difficulties in life does bring us closer to God.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that there's somebody out there that's watching this right now that needs this, that needs to hear that other people have anxiety or have some struggles in life and how you got through it. This will be an encouragement for them. And I just want to say that I appreciate your friendship, your openness and your honesty, and just for working at Mosaic and just being a great part of the team. So thank you so much for who you are and for just the person that you bring to Mosaic. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I feel blessed. And just know if you're out there and you're going through a tough time right now, we're all in this together. We're all falling forward and moving forward, and God is with us. And I'll be praying for you, and pray for me. But yeah, thanks, Jeremy. It was great to be able to share a little bit. And yeah.
Yeah, well, appreciate you, and have a great time in Malta at the beach, hanging out. The weather is great here in Dubai right now, but in the summer, well, I'll be jealous of you, just to tell you.
My office is at Starbucks down the road near the beach, so I'll be at Starbucks tomorrow chilling. So,
right.
Yeah.
We miss you. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk.
Thanks. Bless you guys.
Take care.
Bye.